Welcome, merry listeners, to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we unwrap the enchanting world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian dramas.
As we dive into these cinematic journeys, we're not just recapping, we're embarking on a therapeutic adventure.
Think of it as our cinematic self-care session.
And no, we're not just casual spectators. We're here to dissect the undercurrent messages, unravel the complexities, and even spot those not-so-magical moments of unhealthy behaviors.
And through it all, we'll be infusing our own unique perspectives and life experiences along the way.
Get ready to snuggle up as we explore the cheer, the charm, and the occasional cheesy wonder of these festive films. Welcome back to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini. I'm Lala, a non-French speaking French Canadian.
And I'm Nini, a first-generation ABC, that's American-born Chinese, that speaks broken Chinglish.
And if you're new to the Breaking Script podcast, we're sister-in-laws on a mission to spread joy and glimmers while offering ways to open windows of tolerance through watching Hallmark movies and The Way Home.
We have 4 unique segments that give you a guide to review, or what we like to call break script, with the healthy and unhealthy romantic and family relationships, as well as healthy and unhealthy behaviors in these movies. I actually think the episodes where we bring out the Omo Nardar, that's the narcissistic radar, is what gets us the most plays. So we always start with a movie summary or an episode recap that has been likened by fans to an audio spa. So even if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie or you don't have access, people say you still feel like you've watched the movie or the episode. That way you can follow along with our Boba ratings, because we love Boba, and 4 unique segments of Breaking Script that magically turns your Hallmark movie or The Way Home watching into a more meaningful self-care session. Here we go. You ready for our self-care session today?
Oh, I need a self-care session.
Before we hit record, Lala and I were just talking about how consistently putting out these episodes, like going through the motions of watching the show, reviewing, connecting to like catch up and do to get these episodes out, has truly become self-care for us.
Yeah, I said it
no
like
idea.
it lives in a different part of my brain that feels isolated from the rest of the world. So it's like a happy place, in my brain.
Yes, it totally is a happy place. So thank you guys for listening and helping us keep the fuel going for our happy place. Because my gosh, lately, the yuck sickness going around.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Sickness and church hurt, and it isn't just one place, one church, you
No.
guys. The stories that are coming out. It's not just stories. This is like people we love. But the sickness going around. I watched more movies this weekend than I have in a really long time.
Really?
Your extended family has been really sick for a while too. Are people at the point of like giving movie suggestions?
Oh, maybe they should be, like, literally months. I think my sister, her husband, and her kids have been sick nonstop since October.
Yeah.
Like,
And
no
it's one of those
breaks.
things where it's like you feel like you've gotten over something and then somebody else gets something else and then it goes around again.
Literally.
Or like it's one of these stomach viruses. It's like you get it once and then you get it again.
Oh, and
What
I
is
will
happening?
say stomach viruses are the worst. I think I would much rather have a cold sinus infection than be like throwing up.
Yeah, I agree with that. Unfortunately, we've been doing the latter.
Aww.
And you're really sick when you can't watch a movie. And so I do have to admit, the 2 movies, there were new movies this weekend for Hallmark. The first night I couldn't watch anything. I think I watched the mystery, Crimes of Fashion.
Oh, how was that?
Killer Clutch, which makes me think, are there going to be more Crimes of Fashion? Like, is this going to be a
like a
trilogy? They do a
series.
lot of that with their Hallmark mysteries. That was the first after Hallmark changed to Hallmark Mysteries with Brooke Dorsey. And I have to say, they must have given her more freedoms, because the acting in Crimes of Fashion was like the best that I've seen.
Really?
In a Hallmark mystery. Yeah, it was wow. And the setting was Paris Fashion Week, and I was really nervous for that because in the past, I think I've discussed how like the Paris accents or the
Yes.
French accents have been really like,
Not
that's an
good.
American or a Canadian trying to do a French accent. That's not
Yeah.
really a French accent. Anyways, it was legit. The accents were legit. It had the male lead. I love him from Brothers and Sisters. Are you old enough to have watched Brothers and Sisters? I don't think so. I
I've
don't think you would have
never
been
heard of
allowed to watch
that.
Brothers and
Okay.
Sisters. Anyways, okay. So I have to say, love Crimes
Mhm.
of Fashion, falling in love in Niagara. By the way, if you're following our podcast, if you subscribe to Friendly TV or anywhere you can watch the live Hallmark channels, but also Hallmark Movies Now. Now,
Mm.
DTH, I keep hearing them say that's the Deck to Hallmark podcast. Like, people apparently cannot figure out how to use Hallmark Movies Now. I've literally never had any issues if you subscribe through Amazon Prime. And what they've been doing is they're releasing movies on Hallmark Movies Now before it comes out live on Hallmark Channel.
Oh.
So, do you know? I didn't know, so I don't think you knew what the new movie was that came out like 4 weeks before it's going to come out on Hallmark Channel.
No, is it the Tyler Hynes movie?
No, I wish.
Oh.
Which I have bad news. Wait to the end of the episode where I have
Oh,
bad news,
no.
good news. I'll give you the bad news first with that. But
Okay.
that'll be at the end. Falling in love with Niagara gave me all the feels because the last time I was in Niagara was for your wedding.
Oh, no way. Oh my gosh. So
know.
were they on the Canadian side or they in the
They were
American
on the
side?
Canadian. I was like, it's so pretty.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
Okay, maybe I need to watch that.
Okay,
I'm
so
actually just looking at the pictures right now. I don't recognize these actors. Did you know them?
Jocelyn Houdon.
Okay.
I remember her last name because it's like Udon. I love Udon. With an H.
Yeah.
I have come to realize that I really love her.
Oh.
Yeah, so when I first started watching Hallmark movies, there would just be certain actors or actresses that I would be like, oh,
Mhm.
I like the way you do, like, for some reason the storylines you get picked for, I prefer these. And
Oh,
this was my first time realizing, oh my gosh, I like her movies because she had a New Year, New You movie. This girl's been busy.
really?
Because she just had Falling in Love with Niagara, but Romance with a Twist came out in January. That was the one where they did the aerial dancing
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
because she was a trained ballerina.
No.
In 2021, she was in the Ice Castle movie of the year. We've talked about this. Hallmark has
Yes.
at least one Ice Castle movie a year. So she was in the 2021 one called Baby It's Cold Inside, which is one that I liked.
Mm.
She was in From Friend to Fiance in 2019 with Ryan Pavey, who I also really
Oh.
love. Like when I first found Ryan Pavey, like I went through and watched all the Ryan Pavey movies because I just had to see his progression. But From Friend to Fiance, she carried that. It was one of those movies where the storyline is, can best friends be best friends and not be romantic?
Oh, what a good topic.
But loved how they did it. Okay, but this is my all-time favorite. Are you ready?
Yes.
Love in the Maldives. She married Jake Manley, I think in 2021. They got to film it together as the male and female lead in the
Aw,
Maldives. It literally
no.
felt like a legit, like, awesome commercial with a storyline for that resort in the Maldives, where it has a dreamy, like, bucket list underwater room.
Oh my gosh, that is
Do you know what I'm
amazing.
talking
Yes,
about?
yes, yes. That's
Okay, but
amazing.
the reason why I loved it so much is because there are some national park series movies that Hallmark puts out, and they are not my favorite. I love
Oh.
national parks.
Right.
I do not love Hallmark National Park movies. So I was so nervous for Falling in Love with Niagara. Like, oh my gosh, this is a
Right.
national park movie. Like, I was so nervous. It was so good. Shout out to Jocelyn Houdon and Dan Janot.
Okay, I need to watch that.
Which Dan Janot, bless him. I heard him on some podcasts lately, but I think he was in that movie where I was like, the French accent was really fake. Poor guy. He like booked, so excited to book a Hallmark movie because they're like, you speak French, right? You're from Quebec. And he's like, yeah. They asked him if he spoke French, not if you speak Canadian with a French accent. He's like, no, I don't do that. I speak French. but not a French accent. So like he had to
That's
learn
funny.
how to have a Paris French accent.
That's
I was
funny.
like, poor guy. They
Poor
set you
guy.
up for that. Anyway,
That's
okay.
hilarious.
We need to talk about, we're going to get into it when we get into the segments, because Lala and I were talking just before we hit record, like, what can we do besides puzzling or watching Hallmark movies? Like when we know we're going to go into an activating situation where we have triggers, where we're going to feel the butterflies in the stomach, just feel yuck or go into fight or flight. Like, what are we going to do? We'll talk about it in our first segment because there was a lot of things here. We're going to talk about resource tapping. So remind me if I forget when we get to Surprising Detours. But I cannot wait to get into the ratings. Huge glimmers. Huge glimmers.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Dive into it? Okay.
Let's go.
This is the part of our episode where we have an audio spa-like recap of Season 2, Episode 8 of The Way Home, where Del, Kat, and Alice learn how events of the past have shaped their family's present. Alice learns a secret that affects her relationship with Elliot. Dun, dun, dun. So kick off your shoes, relax your feet. This is where you get to lose yourself to the music. Or, just make chores or work go faster. And that also happens to be the title of this episode. This is Lose Yourself. In 1814, adult Jacob sits on the shore in that cove, telling Kat that he remembers falling into the pond on the Landry farm and being pulled under. He was drowning, and when he came up, he wandered in the woods as there was no path. He couldn't find his way home. It was just endless woods. He recounts Rebecca, who he calls his mother, and Elijah finding him. And Kat wonders if he ever tried to tell them where he came from. Jacob says he doesn't know what is real anymore. Kat tries to remind him by drawing in the sand that he used to draw the letters J and K for their names. It was J and K to the rescue. He carved it into Elijah's table. Then Thomas and Susanna approach and they tell Jacob that Goodwin is looking for him and he should get inside. Kat says that she'll be leaving, but she'll be back soon. To Jacob, Kat says, "See you later, alligator." A look of recognition comes across Jacob's face, which you can't see because you see the back of his head, but he asks Kat why she didn't come for him sooner. Ugh, talk about a wrench in your heart. At the pond, Kat worries to Thomas that it won't bring her back here soon. Thomas says he will keep Jacob safe until she returns, and she asks him to be safe too, and she jumps in. In present day, in the Landry kitchen, Elliot has coffee with Del and Alice. Kat comes in from the pond, and Del tells her there's no need for an apology. Del heads outside to take Alice to school, angrily, while Kat fills Alice and Elliot in on Jacob's whereabouts. Later, in the Landry house, Kat tells Elliot how Jacob's trauma seemed to have erased his memories of them. She wonders why the pond ripped a little boy Jacob away from his family, and Kat thinks that if she can remind him of his life before, he might want to come back. Nick enters and he and Kat hug. He asks her what the big story is that she's been chasing. Elliot and Kat just kind of putter around and avoid the question and head to work. Nick says they should all catch up tomorrow night. He'll plan something. Sure. Outside, Del and Sam have coffee on the back of his truck. Sam jokes that Del must want to keep their relationship a secret, meeting him all the way out in the middle of nowhere. But Del says everyone knows about them already. Back at Elliot's house, Nick asks what's really going on with him and Kat. Elliot tells Nick that he thought they'd find their way back to each other, but he feels like Kat has a whole side to her world that he's not a part of anymore. As Elliot cleans up after Nick, he eyes the hole punched in his wall and he says, "You know what? I need a project." Nick starts to poke around as they discuss home renovations, and he finds Elliot's papers and school books from years ago. Back on Del and Sam's coffee date, she tells him that Evelyn's son doesn't want to sell Lingermore. He's buying up land for a vineyard and wants to make her an offer. Del knows this land has given her family so much, but there aren't any farmers left amongst them. Or that's what she assumes, right? Although she'd like to keep up the tradition in a way that benefits the community, the town council didn't back her proposal. Sam asks her to read it, but Del thinks this offer on the land could be a sign for her. At the Point Cafe, Noah asks Alice if she asked her mom about the Lingermore photo. Very awkwardly. He then apologizes for kissing her yesterday, and Alice asks if they can just forget it ever happened. Monica overhears the entire conversation as Alice runs into adult Nick awkwardly as she goes to check on her tables. Nick tells Monica that he, Elliot, and Kat need a night out, but Monica is busy tomorrow night as she has been wrangled into doing Rita's ghost tour. Nick says, well, then count him and all the rest of them in for that ghost tour also. At the Landry house that night, Alice enters Kat's room to see her sleeping. Alice has the Lingermore picture in hand and wants to talk to her mom about it, but decides against bringing it up and tucks her tired mom in instead. Ugh, they just missed each other. On the Landry porch, Dell takes her in her land and has a flashback to talking with Colton, young Kat, and young Jacob. Colton tells them that by the time they hand the land down to the kids, they'll have doubled the acreage, and it will be the finest dairy farm in the province. Dell comes back to the present as Kat is leaving for work. She tells Kat that they need to talk, as the Goodwins made an offer on the land. Kat tells Dell she can't sell, but Dell says it's her own choice to make. That's when Kat reminds Dell that this is Colton's legacy, and she and Alice have a say. Dell tells Kat how she's always felt indebted to Evelyn Goodwin after everything she did for them years ago. And don't worry, we don't find out what that is in this episode. After Kat leaves for work, Alice asks Dell if her debt to Evelyn has to do with the 2007 Lingermore event. Alice tells Dell that she's sick of not being treated like an adult and that she's part of this family too and deserves to know. Dell tells Alice that some wounds go very deep, and that event that happened is a sore subject because after it, that's when Dell and Kat didn't speak for 17 years. When Elliot spots Alice heading to the pond, he stops her as he knows she should be heading to school, and he knows what she's going to be heading to in the pond. But Alice says she's tired of waiting for answers, so she's going to see for herself. She tells Elliot she knows that he and Kat lied about being at the Lingermore party in 2007, and if she goes back, maybe she can fix things. But Elliot regretfully says he hopes she can forgive him once she sees. In the 2000s, on the Landry farm, young Kat storms outside as Dell follows. Alice listens and watches from behind the boat. Dell tells Kat that she's done everything she can to keep the farm, but it's not sustainable. Kat pleads that it's all they have left of her dad and Jake. Kat tells Dell that she doesn't come home anymore because Dell doesn't make it easy, and then Kat leaves, passing the for sale sign posted at the farm's entrance. Back in present day, Dell reviews the Goodwins' proposal. This is a new proposal, and she has a flashback to Colton getting ready in their room. He's getting dressed and ready to go ask the bank for a loan and asks Dell to wish him luck. Back to the present, Dell gets a text from Sam asking if she wants to do dinner, and she says she would love to. Back with Alice, having traveled through the pond, we're in 2007. Y'all, 5 years have passed. Young Elliot is startled by Alice sleeping in the barn and is exclamatory when he tells her it has been 5 years since she's last been here. And Alice realizes it's around the time of the October Lingermore party. Young Kat approaches the barn and Elliot hides Alice because Kat hasn't seen her in 7 years? Wait, 5 years? 7 years? 7 years. Whoa. And she hasn't aged. That makes sense why Kat never saw her again. Okay. In present day, on Rita's ghost tour of Port Haven, she takes a crowd through the woods by lantern and tells stories about the White Witch. Monica tells Kat she hopes Alice isn't getting hung up on Noah, and Kat doesn't even know about him. Elliot asks Kat if everything's okay, and Kat says no. Dell won't talk to her. Jake thinks Kat forgot about him when it's complete opposite, and Kat has no idea what's going on with Alice. Rita talks more about the White Witch, and Kat tells Rita that everything about this witch is just lore made up by parents to scare their kids. Kat jokes to Elliot that Rita is dragging her name through the mud, and that's when she tells Elliot about how she, in fact, is the one who started the legend of the White Witch in the 1800s when she was saving Jacob. Elliot clearly wants to hear more about that, but first he needs to inform Kat that Alice went back to Lingermore in 2007. Back in 2007, young Kat tells young Elliot, because they're not teens anymore, they're like 24, that things just feel harder with Dell every time she's home, and it'll be 8 years this week since Jacob disappeared. Alice watches their conversation from the other side of the barn. Kat asks for a distraction from all of this, and Elliot says after he waters the plants at Lingermore, he can hang. Kat says it's Halloween weekend and they should throw a party at Evelyn's empty house. But Kat swears it's just going to be a small soiree, just their old small gang, which apparently is just made up of Elliot, Kat, Monica, and Nick. I don't know. Anyway, Elliot assumes that means Brady too, but Kat reveals to Elliot that she left him. Dun dun dun. Kat departs to spread word about the party that night, and Alice insists to Elliot that she's coming. Out the window, Elliot calls to Kat to make it a masquerade party so that Alice can attend incognito. So smart. Smooth move. Quick thinking, Elliot. In present day, on Rita's ghost tour, Rita takes the group inside the lighthouse as she tells stories. Outside, Kat and Elliot fight about Alice going back to 2007. Kat is so upset that Elliot did not try to stop her, but Elliot knows it was inevitable. What could he do? Nick interrupts their argument, asking if they want to get beers after the tour. Elliot says he isn't in the mood to go out, so Nick says instead that the after party is at Elliot's house. Of course. In 2007 at Lingermore, the party has taken flight. Elliot is taken aback when he sees Kat descend the staircase in her party outfit and asks to grab a drink with her. Young Nick and Monica greet Elliot and Kat realizes she made the Facebook party invite public by accident, so it must have gotten out of hand. Monica steals Kat to catch up with her as Elliot worries over broken cups and chaos ensuing at Lingermore, actually insisting that everyone use coasters. In present day at Elliot's, Monica wonders if any others are coming, and Elliot makes a joke to Kat about sharing the Facebook invite. What? Nick asks Monica to pick better music and leaves to make espresso martinis for them. At the party at Lingermore, Nick sees Alice through a window and realizes it's Alice. He pulls his mask down and they share a moment. When he tries to find her on the other side, she's already left. In present day at Elliot's, they play the same song that was playing just at the Lingermore party in that scene we just left with Alice and Nick, and everyone reminisces. Nick says he's going to get everyone shots as Monica brings up that night in 2007. She apologizes to Elliot and Kat as she was the one who shared the Facebook invite publicly. Elliot says there's only one thing to do now, and it's a dance battle. Monica and Elliot dance very awkwardly and cringily and hilariously to Starlight by Muse. Kat thanks Nick for making this evening happen, and he tells Kat he hopes that she and Elliot can make it work. She's shocked he knew about it. Nick tells her that Elliot came to visit him on the boat. He was miserable and cut his trip short to come and win Kat back. Nick quickly realizes Kat didn't know this information and asks her to forget about it. At Dell's house, Sam peruses Dell's record collection as Dell gets them wine. Dell tells him it's Colton's collection, and Sam says he should have asked first. He asks Dell to dance, and Dell has a flashback, of course, to dancing with Colton. When she feels lightheaded, she goes outside to get fresh air, but while there, Dell has another flashback to Colton explaining he didn't get the loan. But Dell reminds them they'll be happy with what they have and build their nest egg. Colton says they'll have their whole lives to plan their legacy. In 2007, at the Lingermore party, chaos has fully broken out. Alice sees young Kat and young Elliot having a conversation and listens in. Kat says it's not that she doesn't love Brady, but she feels like her whole life has been mapped out for her. She tells Elliot that she actually got accepted into a competitive graduate journalism program in London. Kat was trying to tell Brady, but she got scared and instead left her ring, packed up her things, and came home to Port Haven. Kat wonders if she made the biggest mistake, but Elliot tells Kat she has to go to the program in London. Kat tells Elliot to come with her to the UK where they can start their lives over and be whoever they want to be. When Elliot says he's in and he wants to leave that night, Elliot says he'll have Nick help him shut the party down, and Kat will go home and pack, and they'll meet at midnight to drive to the airport. They hug as they leave to enact the plan. Back in present day, Dell comes inside the house to Sam. Sam gives Dell a check, and he reads her proposal for her plan for the land and found it expiring. He wants to be involved, so he slides an investment check to Dell, and Dell has a flashback of young Kat sliding a check toward her in the same way that Sam just did. So Dell tells Sam that she doesn't care what he calls it, but she's not taking his money. Sam tells her to not let her pride get in the way of something good. And Del tells Sam he doesn't know her and should stop acting like he does. Sam quickly apologizes, says he's overstepped, and apologizes before leaving. At Elliot's house, Elliot, Kat, Nick, and Monica dance and drink some more. All of a sudden, Nick gets a phone call from Claire, and the group tells him to answer. Monica takes Nick to a quiet, private room to talk to Claire. While on the couch, left alone, Kat tells Elliot that she's trying to figure out where they stand. And Elliot says, well, it depends on what's going on with this Thomas guy. Kat says nothing happened with Thomas and that Elliot doesn't have the right to ask because he ended their relationship. That's when Monica enters and gathers her items to leave and encourages Elliot to go after Kat. Back in 2007, Alice searches the party for Elliot, but bumps into young Kat instead. Kat recognizes Alice, and young Kat tells Alice about her plan to run away to London with Elliot, and Alice worries about Brady, almost calling him her dad. Young Brady enters the party, looking for Kat as Elliot works to shut down the party, and Alice tells Elliot that the rules of time travel must be broken because none of this is supposed to be happening. Alice begs Elliot to let Brady win because if Kat leaves with Elliot, she doesn't know what will happen with her own existence. Elliot says that Kat wants to be with him now and he's sorry, but he's not missing his chance with her again. Kat and Brady's fight moves outside, and Elliot tries to intervene, but Kat tells him to go inside. In present day, Elliot follows Kat outside, and she asks him to go back in. Elliot wonders if he'll always be Kat's second choice. Kat says she doesn't know how she's supposed to choose him when he won't tell her how she feels. They keep missing their moment, and Elliot wonders if they're better as friends. Kat asks if that's what Elliot really wants, and he quickly approaches her and moves on to passionately kiss her. Back in 2007, Elliot tries to get Brady to back off, but Brady hits Elliot's face, knocking his glasses off. That's what we saw in the picture. The crowd encourages the fight to continue. Pause there, because back in present day, Nick is on the phone with Claire. He asks for her location as he wants to come meet her. He grabs paper to write on, but he sees Elliot's notes in his old notebooks detailing Alice's time travel through the pond. Nick furiously exits Elliot's house and interrupts Elliot and Kat's passionate kissing, wheeling Elliot's journals and asking Elliot to explain. Then we're back in 2007. At the party, Brady pushes Elliot and goads him on to fight. As Elliot swings to hit Brady, he accidentally hits Kat, landing her in the pool, face down and bleeding. And that is the end of The Way Home, Season 2, Episode 8.
Okay, now is a part of our episode where we give this episode of The Way Home a rating out of 10 bobas. So, Nini, what was your rating for this episode?
It was a 9.5. I mean, it wasn't, there's certain things that make it a perfect 10 because we had like 100 out of 10 in the first season. But for me, it was really close to great. It was one of those, okay. Hallmark gets a high score when you have like, I didn't have dead ends because I had so many glimmers. Like when a Hallmark movie is like, I know you're not perfect, but I don't care because you gave me all the feels that I didn't want to pick at anything.
Yes.
So it was a 9.5 for me because I actually had like pre-written glimmers in case this episode didn't give me glimmers because of the past.
Oh.
But this truly was Gilmore Girls 3.0 this week. Multiple nods to the Loreleis. I had a pre-written glimmer of like, I was just going to share preview news of the new Tyler Hynes movie for all the hynies. You'll have to listen to the end for that now because I had true glimmers this week. I didn't have to use that. So last week, my apologies was making amends.
Yeah.
To The Way Home.
And now you're back on track.
Yeah. And sometimes when you make amends, like you can't expect for things to be better. I had pre-written that for this week. But it did. My amends worked. It made things better.
I'm so happy.
What was your Boba rating?
Mine was a 9. But I have a question for you. Because I actually went into this assuming that yours would be higher. So my question is, was it higher because we focused so much on like the 2000s, like the past, whereas we've been missing that, focusing so much on the 1800s?
100%.
So for you, the theory is true. We
The
can
theory is
validate
100%
yes,
true.
we can validate what you thought is that you just love the past, but not too far in the past, not 1800s past.
Exactly. It's the 2000s. It's because it's when I grew up, and it's all the nods. So we'll get into that
Yeah.
when we break it down.
Yeah.
Should we just do it?
Let's do it.
Our first of 4 segments in The Way Home breaking scripts is Home Sweet Home, where we break down first glimmers, and we have lots of them this week, Wolf or Nini. What we love and breaking down the romantic and family relationships. Let me kick us off.
Okay.
Hello, in this masquerade party, who did you think Nick was dressed up as?
Oh, was he Captain Jack Sparrow?
Oh man. What?
Who was he? He wore that pirate fluffy shirt.
It was Wesley from Princess Bride. As
Oh,
you wish. Hello,
Wesley.
my
Oh
name is
my
Inigo
gosh.
Montoya. You killed my father,
That's
prepared to
well,
die.
okay. In my defense, he didn't say anything like that. So how did
I know.
that? Okay, I was close. That's kind
But
of a close
Captain
reference, but
Jack
you're
Sparrow
right.
didn't wear the black thing around his eyes.
Was he wearing a thing around his eyes?
Because the masquerade, he was wearing the
You're
Wesley.
right. Oh my gosh.
little-
Okay. Cut that. Everyone forget that I even suggested that.
Chris, are you even family? Princess Bride is like the number one most quoted in our house.
I
Princess
know.
Bride,
I know.
Nacho Libre.
But for some reason that just, and now that I think about it, how could it not? Because the blonde hair and everything, like he actually looks like him. Anyways, sorry. That was a good one.
It's okay. It's all right.
Let you
Okay, but
down.
I couldn't figure out who was Alice supposed to be just Catwoman
cat?
or just a cat?
Oh,
She was Cat her mom? Like with I don't know.
literally just took it as like her being a cat.
Surely there had to be something poetic because you guys are that brilliant in the writing, but I don't know. But I didn't pick it up. And this gave me so many feels. What cat, like, what her costume was. Did you pick it up?
What cat was?
I had to go to the interwebs for this because, listen, the way that people break down these episodes is intense on the interwebs. Cat, people felt like there was a nod to the Leo DiCaprio version of Romeo and Juliet. They literally pulled screenshots. It was the costume in Romeo and Juliet of Juliet's costume. Yes. Was what Kat was wearing. And not only that, but the scene where Nick and Alice were looking at each other through the window.
Yes.
They have that in Romeo and Juliet.
And Juliet. Okay.
I forgot about that.
Okay. That was one of my things. It felt very much like that scene felt like that movie to me, which gave me the feels.
Yes. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, because that's very high school for me. Like that movie. Like we actually did it in English class and then we loved that movie. Anyways.
You guys watched that movie in English class?
Yeah.
That's
at
impressive.
A Christian school.
Wow. Very progressive for the time.
It was a very, it was I think it was a big like cult classic that defined Shakespeare in our like those years.
It brought it back for us. Yeah.
It brought it back and it
decade.
changed the narrative and it made it more along the lines of like how the past is still present in the future. Anyways, doesn't matter. Loved it. Loved that scene.
Love it. Okay. I have 2 more. The reason why these humongous glimmers, and it could I think could have been over 10 Boba rating, but when at the party, see, it's all the party scenes.
I know.
It just has to be. When Elliot says, "Don't forget to use a coaster," hello, that is 100% totally a Gilmore Girls reference from the famous episode titled Keg, Max, we're fight. Like Dean and Jess are fighting over Rory at a party where Lane's totally drunk. Her band plays for the first time. Like super classic. I know. How is that not? Because literally at that party, the guy's like, "Please use coasters." Like, come on. 100% Gilmore Girls reference. But also the dance battles. So that wasn't the 2000s party, but the fact that they brought up dance battles, which was totally a 90s, early 2000s thing. Like, I don't, was that a thing? I know that was a thing in Toronto because thanks to Simu Liu. He has an amazing book, by the way. Love that he brought that to the scene, like the awareness of the dance battle culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you were a part of the subculture of like the Fast and Furious racing crews, which I was not, but my cousins were, it literally was synonymous with hip hop dance battles.
Mm.
You probably did not have the same
No, sorry.
It was an Asian American. I'm sure it was an Asian Canadian thing. Oh my gosh, that's a question that I have. Was
Well,
that
I
an Asian
think
Canadian
dance
thing?
battles in general, I feel like there was did I ever attend one? Did I like it is a thing that I know
That's cute.
about. uh, so like I understand that reference. Like that's something that you don't hear about nowadays, in my opinion. I mean, you see them now on TikTok, but in just like a casual sense, right?
Yeah.
You don't see that as much.
Anyway, okay, you do yours.
The music. Oh my gosh, the party music. It literally reminded me of my high school, because like my high school years. And I'll never forget, my mom let me go to, I don't think sorry, Mom, if you're listening. I don't know if she realized it was like a party, but it was like one of the first house parties that I ever went to. And it was in this guy's basement. And he had like, it was really sweet. And he had like moved all of the furniture, and he like lit it up, and it was a party and it like a dance party. And like I swear it was the same playlist. And like I get so many feels, because also I just have to say, when I was at that party, I'd never danced with anyone, and a slow song came on, and the host, he asked me to dance, but I how to dance, and it's so embarrassing. I basically danced like a 90-year-old woman. I had my hand like ballroom dancing. Like I didn't know the whole like put your arms around the neck. Sheltered. And anyways, so I loved the music.
Did you not have school dances?
No, because it was a Christian school.
So listen, in California, if you were a Christian school, you'd still have dances. If you were a Baptist school, you did not. And our school had the word Baptist in it, but then it got dropped. And then they had dances.
Oh.
And we were like,
no.
what? That doesn't even make any sense. So we we still had prom, but you couldn't dance at it. Did you have that?
Okay, so that's so interesting. We had prom, but it wasn't thrown by the school. So it was a student, I was prom council, like I planned our prom, no surprise here. And you had to get parent chaperones. So the school allowed the students to meet and advertise prom, but it wasn't thrown by the school. So we had to get parent chaperones and things like that.
How'd you get funding for it?
Through the ticket sales.
Wow.
Yeah, so it had to be all
of the school, so that way the school's not liable.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so there was no dancing.
Great.
No, I grew up going to, it was Christian Reformed. So like not Baptist, but not charismatic either. Like it's somewhere maybe in between. I don't exactly know on the scale where it falls, but no dancing.
Is it like modern Reformed? Because you know that my brother and I were born into a Dutch Reformed.
Well, it's more Dutch Reformed, actually.
Really? Like liturgical? This is our first time having this conversation.
Yeah, it wasn't as like, so I've since learned there are many, there's like what we call Canadian Reformed, there's Dutch Reformed, and then I think there's Christian Reformed. So we were Christian Reformed, but it was primarily Dutch. But not to be mistaken for Dutch Reformed, but there are similarities. It's just not as, I would say, like, I think rigid is a negative word, but just it's not as rigid.
Riveting podcast content here. I'm sure everyone was curious about that.
Yeah.
I can get into that topic. But anyways, there's something really important that we have to clarify here today, because Home Sweet Home is where we talk about family and romantic relationships, the healthy-ish parts. We have to clarify the correct hashtags.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is really important. Because we've been saying Tomcat, and apparently Hallmark Official, that is not the ship hashtag for the Cat Thomas relationship. It's Katniss.
Oh.
So it's, are you Team Calliot or Team Katniss?
Ooh. Okay, let me ask you. What are you?
We're going to have to talk about that in Surprising Detours. What are you?
Obviously, I'm Katniss.
I'm none of them. It's a combination of Surprising Detours and The Way We See It because we need to just get into it.
Okay, wait. Can I just say one last
please.
thing that I loved? Was it, and this is very Lorelai to me, actually, was the outfit that Kat wore in 2007 when she came home to find that the house was for sale. That the bell-bottom jeans, that jacket with the scarf, it was
that
so,
was so Lorelai. You're so right.
And as soon as I saw it, that's literally, I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like Lorelai Gilmore. Anyways, that outfit to me was quintessential early 2000s. Like I'm pretty sure I had the same hat.
I literally, there had to have been more Gilmore Girls references, and maybe I didn't put it in my notes because I was going to start this episode because I was scared it was going to disappoint me. We've seen this as a theme. When Nini lowers her expectations, Boba ratings soar. Because I pre-wrote I was going to start this episode with welcome back to Breaking Script with Gilmore Girls 3.0. I love it so much because Gilmore Girls 2.0 was such a disappointment. It needed 3.0. I feel like most of the relationship discussions we need to have are going to happen in Surprising Detours. I didn't have anything else besides clearing up the ship past checks. Okay. So Surprising Detours is where we talk about unhealthy behaviors or coping mechanisms. And for the way home, we include, because there are so many surprises, which they're back. We're back. The surprises are back. Not to, like as clever as it used to be, but at least it was more like, okay, there was a lot happening, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to rapid fire some? Go ahead.
Can I just start with the biggest one? That the scene opens with Jacob talking, which he has a voice, he can speak. But which was surprising. Yes. And he's talking to Kat. But didn't you I was a little disappointed with that. Were you?
Yeah, it was disappointing. It was surprising
because he's talking and he's awake and he's up.
Yeah. Like the cold open doesn't normally start that way. And the conversation didn't give us, I think, what we wanted. Right. So it was a little bit like
there was, it felt very, and I get it. Like there's been X amount, like 20 something years that they've seen each other, but it just felt very disconnected between the two. And I'm sure that was intentional, but when it opened with him speaking, I was kind of disappointed because there was no like, Kat, I missed you. I remember you. Like there was no, it was very anticlimactic for me.
Well, I think because it was something that he really tried to forget. So I don't think he was feeling those feels of like, I'm so happy.
I know, but I just wish I saw him wake up. Like
you wish you watched the process of him
exactly
getting there.
Yes.
It's like, wait, how did you guys get to the cove?
Yes,
which I love that they were in the cove, but it felt like there was a missing link of how did they get there? Like what was the conversation? We missed a lot, but it seemed like they were trying to portray it as if one happened right after the other, but that also doesn't work.
You're right.
I think I was really disappointed. I said I didn't have any dead ends, but this has to do still is a surprise where when she said, "See you later, alligator," I wanted him to turn around and say, "After a while, crocodile." I was so, like, or at least whisper it, or even if he was disappointed, like do something with that line.
I agree. I really didn't. We're on the same page here.
Okay. So yeah, in terms of the brother-sister relationship, like, I mean, there's so much there. They both have so much trauma that the other one doesn't know about yet, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that's what we're feeling is that angst of that reintroduction. But go ahead. What were you
okay, so I'll rapid fire the rest.
Yeah, go for it.
It's a very moving moment when Jacob asked Kat why she didn't come for him sooner, but this never gets resolved. Kat, I think it is exactly what you're saying. Kat believes that Jacob's trauma has erased the memories from his mind, which is very plausible. Like that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Dell's considering selling the land, which we're also surprised because we find out that this is not the first time she's ever considered or tried to sell the land. And this causes obviously tension between her and Kat. It brings up the past. Alice heads to the pond, and we know because Elliot comes to her and basically says that he hopes that she can forgive him. So we know she's going back to the time. Well, and he says, "You come back one more time."
Right.
This is the night of the party. So we find out it's been 5 years later. She arrives. That's a surprise. And we actually find out that Kat and Brady have broken up.
What?
Didn't see that coming.
Sure
And that
didn't.
Kat finally decides to give Elliot a chance, and they decide they're going to run away together in London because Kat has been accepted into this prestigious journalism program. And then Elliot's like, why wait? Let's go tonight. And they hatch this plan to go to the airport at midnight and fly
Which
away
was so not an
together.
Elliot thing. I was like, wait, what?
I know. And then who shows up? Brady. I'm definitely
Unbelievable.
skipping in between here, but I'm giving you like
Yeah, I
my
love it.
big points. And then the fight. Okay, so we finally, and this goes into like later on in the episode, but we finally find out what happens, that Brady and Elliot begin to fight, and Elliot hits Kat, and then she falls in the water, and then there's just blood, and then end scene, end episode.
So much. It's really hard to talk about these without combining it with the way we see it.
I know.
But I do want to stop here for a second. When you have an altercation, or like when Brady comes in to talk to Kat, and she's been in this headspace of, we're running away.
Yeah.
I'm getting away. Like, I'm done with that part. And then that part of your life walks in that you're running away from. What do you do? So we've talked about before when your brain is online or offline.
Yes.
When your brain is offline and you're feeling activated in your body, meaning you're either in fight, flight, or freeze. In order to engage the prefrontal cortex to get back online, to engage the logical reasoning, grounded part of your brain to have a healthy conversation, you may need a moment.
Yeah.
And what do you do in that moment? And this is something we talk about a lot in narcissistic abuse. Like, the person doesn't even have to be around. Like, you just even anticipating having to face that narcissist or someone that has hurt you in the past, you can feel the activation without them even being there or doing anything, right? And so there's something called resource tapping, where before you start doing the tapping, bilateral tapping, which we've talked about. I think we talked about that on a Boba break, haven't we?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, with bilateral tapping. So go back. I'll try to link it below in a Boba break if I talked about it, or in an episode somewhere where I've talked about bilateral tapping. Where you want to engage your imagination also. It takes the effects of the bilateral tapping even more to bring your goal. You're not fixing the problem. You're basically just helping to give your nervous system more capacity. It's another way of opening your windows of tolerance. So you're going to think of these 4 figures in your life. You're going to come up either with actual figures in your life or imaginative figures. So there are 4. You ready? It's a peaceful, the first one is a peaceful place. And then you have 3 figures. You have a nurturing figure, a protecting figure, and a wise figure. So like nurturing could be like a mother, like Mother Teresa. It could be like just someone that you think of as nurturing. It could be like a character from an animation. A protector figure, I have clients who'll use Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Wonder Woman, things like that, or a wise figure, someone that you just feel like is grounded and wise. So when you identify who those figures are, or like a really peaceful place, and you can go there in your head, in your imagination, and the more like engage your 5 senses, like what are you seeing? What would you smell in that place? What kind of colors? What are you hearing? Get really specific and describe it to yourself. And as you're doing that in your head or out loud, like just tap bilateral, do the butterfly tapping. That, by the way, is in our self-care grounding menu. That's a part of the Breaking Script podcast movie watching journal that we'll link in the show notes. So what I just described is in that journal. You combine it with the resource tapping. It has been a game changer for me. I do that with the breath work that's in our self-care journal or self-care menu. So anyways, that's what I would if I were Kat. And if you can get there, once you get in a habit of doing this, be like, hey, Brady, I wasn't expecting you to be here. I just need a moment. I would excuse myself to the bathroom.
Oh, that's good.
And do some breath work and do a little bit of tapping. Take a deep breath. You're not going to get all the way to not activated, but you'll reduce it down a little bit so you can sort of get back online and then go back and engage in the conversation. Anyways, that is resource tapping. I feel like I don't think I can talk about any more of the surprising detours without combining it with the way we see it.
Yeah.
Should we just do that?
Let's do it.
Because I don't have any dead ends. Do you?
I have a couple.
Let's do dead ends first then.
Okay.
What we didn't like.
Okay. And this is just me, maybe, but this whole season, we've been wondering what happens at Lingermore. Okay. Like, what is so bad? I just felt like the fight was not as bad. Like, I feel like they were making it worse. And like, okay, we've also been reading fan theories and they are wild. So I was expecting it to be like over the top. Like Kat was gonna yell, "I'm pregnant," and like, I don't know, it's Elliot's baby. Not really that, but you know what I mean? Like something so crazy.
Yes.
So when it's just this fight, I think I was, and maybe this is because I read fan theories, so it's not as over the top. I was a little bit like, oh, why would Alice need to forgive Elliot over an accident? I don't know.
She needed to forgive him because he wanted to, it was over her existence.
Right. But I think in my mind, I'm like, but we already know you can't change the past. So I'm like.
But she doesn't.
She doesn't know that. Okay, I'm like thinking this out in real time.
I think there's more. I think there's more to play out here. So for me, I have to address this part in the way we see it. But did you have more?
Yes, I didn't like that we only saw Jacob once this episode, only because we are at episode 8. That means our theory about them jam-packing everything into episode 9 and 10 is probably correct, or they're trying to save it for the
season 3,
which we still don't know, right? If it's been renewed for season 3.
Come on, Hallmark.
Also, I don't know how I feel about the possibility of Nick now knowing about the pond. I don't know how I feel about that.
I know. I was like, you didn't need to bring back this character, and now he knows about the pond. So
exactly,
what is that
I'm kind of like, why is Nick gonna know and Dell's not? And then like, what's gonna happen? Because then he's gonna realize his relationship with Alice, and that makes it weird because she's a teenager, but it's the same Alice he kissed. I don't know. And then my last one is, it's literally just what is happening with Jacob. Like we literally saw him at the beginning. Nowhere else. 2 episodes left. What's gonna happen? Didn't like that. But you know what? I have to go back really quickly and jump back to a glimmer that I forgot to tell you.
Yes.
Because it's something you and I talked about offline. I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast because it's such a cringe theory. One of the theories that we were thinking about is like, what if Elliot apologizes because Elliot starts to develop feelings for Alice? And I was like, that would just be like too weird. Anyways, my glimmer, the thing that I loved is that it is not that Elliot had a thing with Alice.
Yes,
I actually felt so relieved. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because I was really worried it was going to go that direction.
Yeah, listen, all the incest theories, guys, there's a lot of incest theories, fan theories out there of like, I don't think we're going to go that way, but it is kind of weird how, because even like the Alice Noah, there's some incest theories there. There's like, how Byron is actually Jacob. That's thanks to Deck the Hallmark, but there's all other like, it's just bizarre.
There's wild theories. Anyways, those are my dead ends, and they're very much based out of my own opinions. But again, my biggest one is we need more about Jacob. Like we have 2 episodes left, Hallmark.
I know. And I'm concerned because I'm like, wait, but if those are mostly 1800s, then my glimmer's going. So the way we see it is where we talk about observations and theories because we all have different observations, which change our theories. Who is the ghost? That was my only dead end, is that we didn't find out who the ghost was. Like, is it Jacob or Thomas? Like, surely I thought Rita was going to bring it up. I can't tell if Kat and Brady are married or not. at this point. I feel okay. A lot of people are like, they're married already.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I feel like they're just engaged because otherwise
Mhm.
it would be an even huger deal. Like when she says, I left Brady, if you're married, that's way more complicated than you're just engaged and I left him, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree.
Okay.
Because we read that fan theory about her. So one fan, I don't know if we posted it last week, but did the timeline of like when Alice would have been conceived. And remember they thought
Yes.
that
Okay.
at
So
the
that's
party.
so listen, I think what happens is that when they obviously are going to have to 911 rush Kat to the hospital to get her checked out,
They
right?
find out she's pregnant.
100%. Did I ever tell you the time that we went to a wedding and it was a Chinese wedding, and so like the meal is really long, and we were like rushed through. The wedding was really felt really rushed, and like it's like a 12 course, I don't know how many courses, more than 12 meal, and like the food usually like you're waiting between
Okay.
courses.
Mm-hmm.
It all of a sudden came out like super fast all at once, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, the bride's not feeling well, she's leaving, and they thought she had appendicitis, so they thought she was going to have an appendectomy, and then they found a baby.
No.
Yes. I was like, oh, this is what that reminds me.
Oh my gosh, that's
Um,
crazy. Yeah,
yeah, real
I
life
think your
stories.
theory is,
And so my theory is
and
because,
that's why they get married so soon.
and
Then.
also it's because that's why Dell is indebted to Evelyn. I think Evelyn either pays for the hospital bills or hospital bills, and because remember, Dell was wanting to sell the land. I think instead of selling the land, um, Evelyn didn't buy the land. She just gave Dell money to save the farm
Oh my gosh.
because
Wow.
they were going
You
through
are a
such a hard time.
master at putting these puzzle
I
pieces
think
together.
that's what, because that's why Kat and Dell don't talk after she finds out she's pregnant. Kat ends up with Brady and cuts off connection because Dell's so angry. And yeah, I
Wow.
feel like that's what happens because then Kat's so upset because like why would you let Evelyn pay when, because I think what we saw when Sam, so that's another thing, Sam Bishop offering
Yeah.
to invest in Dell's farm like
Yeah.
idea, like
Mhm.
her dream, which I thought that was so cute, but also I wanted to that was a little bit, I could have talked about that in Surprising Detours, but I get Dell's feeling of like we're not even sure where we are romantically, like I don't know if I want to get partnered with you
Yes.
like financially,
Mhm.
like I totally get her reservations. But we see that scene because it's overlaid or alternated with Sam pushes a check to Dell the same way that in the early or in 2007 Kat is pushing a check to Dell in the same way, which I'm assuming is from Brady's family because Brady's family has a lot of money.
Yeah.
So Dell chose to take Evelyn's money over Brady's money rather than
Yes.
keeping it in the family, which is why they don't talk for 17 years.
Wow. Profound, honestly. I think you're right. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I do.
And I hope that they knock out the walls in Elliot's house and find things in the walls. And then you also find stuff in the walls of the Augustine house and the Landry house because they talked about that stone being loose in the fireplace, like
Yes.
this loose stone in the fireplace and the Landry soil. You're going to do something with that, right? Story writers.
Maybe that's where the
Like,
history of Jacob is. Like, you know how
yeah,
they talked about like he's kind of written out of history, but then Susanna's like, well, history, like it doesn't include everything. Like maybe
totally.
there's
Totally.
the
I
history of
really hope
Jacob within
so.
the fireplace.
I really hope so. And oh my gosh, you guys.
What?
The early 2000s really brings out the Valley Girl in me. I think Noah is from the future. I think that's why he was like about the kiss.
What?
Yes, I think that's why he's apologetic about the kiss. I think like the way that Alice feels about kissing Nick is about Noah kissing Alice. I think that could be possibly season 3.
Oh, that's
This could be,
weird.
remember we talked about that
Yes.
complex like color pie chart
Yes.
time. It's a closed loop.
Whoa.
Anyway, also really elaborate theories of about, remember we talked about the difference between time travel and pawn time travel rules and pawn rules.
Yes.
I think the pawn rules have something to do with the snow moon and the pink moon. This was a fan theory, and I'm sorry, I need to credit who it was. I didn't write down who it was. But yeah, they noted how certain events happen surrounding the certain moons. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't intelligent enough to pick that. I didn't take astronomy. I dropped out of my astronomy class. What else you got here?
I only have 2, and one of them is like, is the ghost Colton?
Oh my goodness.
That was my thought, because we still have the curly hair, or the guy from episode 1, and I think it's becoming clear to me that it's not Jacob. Like, Jacob hasn't traveled, so then it has to be Colton.
Someone said, what if it's Victor? And I was like, if Victor's a time traveler, I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like attached to that theory, but I'm like, what if Colton is the ghost? Then my second theory, this is what I think. I think that Jacob is not going to come back to the present. Del is going to go to the past to see Jacob. Like, they're going to bring Del to the past.
Oh my goodness, I never thought about that. Okay, there is a huge surprising detour that we didn't talk about that I might not have time to talk about today. Remind me to talk about next week, when Elliot says to Kat, how come you don't want to talk about Thomas? Can we talk about that next week? I have a Love is Blind reference. Remind me to talk about that next week.
Okay.
Like, all the passionate kissing and Nick knowing about Kat and Elliot, and Kat not realizing that Nick knew. And then it's him. Who, when you're writing down an address, who would pick up like someone's personal stuff and write in the middle of a book? Like, wouldn't you write it on the back? And then why would you go and read it?
I know that's why.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a dead end.
I didn't love that.
Where are we going to go from here? I don't know. What else? Do you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, let's wrap it up. We're going to pick up next week talking about, in the Surprising Detours, the red flag conversation. I have a thank you for our first commenter on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for answering the question of what is Katana? It's Kat and Susanna. I totally it didn't cross my mind. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I told you I had bad news and good news.
Yeah.
Switching gears, the Tyler Hyne movie comes out this weekend. Bad news, it's not playing on the W Network. Sorry.
Oh, bummer. Well, get a VPN, people.
So VPN, friendly TV, record it. Good news, there are 3 hynies movies on Prime. I'll link it in the show notes. And they're playing all kinds of hynies movies all week in preparation for Switching Gears. And March 22nd, you can Facebook Live with Tyler and Catherine and ask questions. That's the male and female lead of Switching Gears, which premieres this weekend. So anyways, that's it for today. We got to wrap up. So we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for breaking script with us. Please share this episode on your socials and tag at the Breaking Script Podcast. Follow and hit the notification bell button so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't yet, please rate and review in Apple Podcasts so we can spread more Hallmark glimmers with the world. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.